The Beatles. There has been the Beatles. And then there was all people else. And all people else can be great. However, the Beatles had been main the way, and that's just irrefutably real. The Beatles recorded collectively for a bit over 7 years. Between October 1962 and May 1970, they released 13 albums and a number of tracks issued on standalone singles. The catalogue created in that quick period has offered greater than that of every other institution in records, and its industrial fulfillment keeps the arena's high-quality selling album. At some point of the first decade of the 21st century was a set of the Beatles' chart-topping singles known as, but the institution's importance stems not just from big sales figures. Their song has inspired technology upon technology of musicians, songwriters and manufacturers. As Mark Ronson placed it, the whole lot we take without any consideration, they truly invented it. Tom Petty became a teenager for the duration of the years the Beatles' data regarded in brief succession. They had been simply out in the front. There's been the Beatles, after which there was each person else. And everybody else will be splendid. However, the Beatles were main the way, and that's simply irrefutably actual. The Beatles' tale began in Liverpool, March 1957. Whilst John Lennon, born the 9th of October 1940, formed a collection named the Quarrymen, his lifestyles became modified by the exhilaration of rock and roll tune heralded with the aid of Invoice Haley and his Comets. However, taken to any other level, whilst Elvis Presley stormed the charts throughout 1956, the subsequent 12 months noticed the advent in the United Kingdom of hits by using Little Richard, Pal Holly and the Crickets, the Everly Brothers and, in film theatres, the interesting rock movie The Female Cancer Sisters, featuring Eddie Cochran making a song 20 Flight Rock, brought to John on the 6th of July 1957 at a church fete in Woolton, Liverpool. Paul McCartney, born the 18th of June 1942, sang Eddie's track Word Ideal. Impressed, John invited the 15-year vintage to sign up for his group. In February 1958, Paul's more youthful faculty pal Harrison, born the 25th of February 1943, received his vicinity within the Quarry Guys, whilst he inspired the others with his guitar competencies, mainly on the cutting-edge hit instrumental Raunchy via Bill Eustace, with a regular nucleus of John, Paul and George. Right Now, a set from Liverpool, had the chances stacked towards them whilst trying to gain a foothold in a record commercial enterprise focused on London. In early 1962, they had received an ambitious and rather refined manager. Document shop boss Brian Epstein. He confronted regular rejection from song organizations till George Martin signed the organization to EMI's Parlophone label. By way of destiny, the Beatles had located both the perfect supervisor and best producer. The closing piece of the picture slotted into area just 3 weeks earlier than recording their first, and married on the 4th of September 1962. Ringo Starr, born July 7, 1940, was asked to take over as drummer. He were playing with Rory Storm and the Hurricanes. Any other Liverpool organisation who performed lengthy stints within the clubs of Hamburg, Ringo's character feel of humour and rock-solid creative drumming proved to be just proper for the Beatles. Their first Parlophone, Unmarried, was launched on the 5th of October 1962. Each sides of the disc were authentic compositions, a great announcement of purpose from a collection, making their first steps within the tune enterprise. In truth, George Martin had entreated them to document Mitch Murray's How Do You Do It, which he felt became a sure half hit. They had reluctantly agreed, but had been able to persuade George to shelve the recording in favor in their personal songs, Love Me Do and P.S. I Love You. Simply one instance of the way the Beatles' tale could have been very specific. With a less open-minded document manufacturer, George Martin's religion within the Beatles, and in John and Paul S. songwriters, was soon vindicated via the discharge of Please Me in January 1963. The single reached the top of all, but one of the United Kingdom charts. It was followed by means of the primary, From Me to You, and their first album Please Me, which topped the chart for 30 weeks, till their subsequent LP replaced it. At number 1, the debut album featured 8 Lennon-McCartney compositions and 6 cover versions of new American rhythm and blues facts. The selection, an end result of the Beatles' regular search for the uncommon, confirmed their impeccable taste, as compared to the sophisticated association of an R&B, authentic like twist and shout. Their versions have been stripped-down reinventions. For a 4-piece beat group, George Martin has showed that it was by and large the American rhythm and blues sound that changed into their notion. It's probably what the so referred to as Beatles sound became, because all of the black music turned into a terrific impact on them, but that source changed into, unknown to the general public, in their British fanatics, the wonderful, confident second album with the Beatles changed into. Issued in November 1963, while the unmarried She Loves You turned into a primary another time. It featured 8 original compositions, including All My Loving, and George Harrison's first recorded song, Don't Trouble Me, and 6 cover versions per week. Later, I Need to Maintain Your Hand changed into Launched, and also reached primary. The organization had turned out to be the biggest musical phenomenon in British display commercial enterprise ever. Most of the key elements that brought about this fulfillment became the chemistry among the 4 personalities inside the institution, their immense allure under bold picture. Nobody had worn their hair that long. Their interviews had been humorous and articulate. They'd a charismatic presence while performing, and women screamed and swooned over them. The time period Beatlemania turned into, coined by using the press to explain the hysteria rouse by way of the organization. However, as an appearance at the Royal Range display confirmed, their popularity stretched manner beyond the teenage marketplace. What the Beatles did next changed into first rate for a British act. In February 1964, they arrived in the America to appear at the Ed Sullivan Show. They accomplished to 73 million visitors, the most important TV target audience to date, and with I Need to Preserve Your Hand at the top of the charts, the USA changed into abruptly held spellbound. With the aid of the Beatles, as their success spread across the world, almost the whole thing the institution did from then on become unprecedented. Further to unprecedented success on file, they held all top 5 positions in the American chart inside the first week of April. Their first movie, A Tough Day's Nighttime, changed into a container office hit, and acclaimed for its wit, invention, and unbeatable self-composed songs. Premiered in July 1964, it changed into flawlessly timed. To capitalize on their global leap forward, they rounded off the 12 months with Beatles For Sale, and the large hit Unmarried. I Experienced First Class in 1965. They starred in the movie Assist, like their first movie it turned into, directed by using Richard Lester, and featured an extremely good batch of songs on its accompanying album. Tucked away toward the cease of the LP, turned into a performance by way of Paul McCartney of his composition Yesterday, no longer even launched as a single within the United Kingdom. It turned into a no. 1 in the United States. It quick have become, and stays, the maximum protected tune of all time. The Day Past is an instance of ways the Beatles, in their manufacturer, did not compromise something. First Class served, the song became usually pursued. Within the case of The Day Past, the ambitious preference become a classical arrangement for a string quartet. For the next album, Air Soul, extra studio time changed into Made to Be. Had to strive out unusual instrumentation and adventurous recording techniques. The phrases of the songs had been greater mature, and the vocal blend heard on tracks, together with Nowhere Man and Michelle, is one of the album's most different qualities. The Beatles' sound is, of course, distinguished with the aid of the person. Of their voices, few corporations were blessed with two powerful lead singers, as flexible as John Lennon and Paul McCartney. Moreover, George Harrison, now not handist, contributed at the least one lead vocal to every album, but his voice became additionally crucial to the complicated Concord vocals on many Beatles tracks. Ringo Starr normally sang a solo on albums, making such Lennon or McCartney songs as Yellow Submarine and With the Touch Help from My Pals, impossible without his voice, launched on the equal day as Rubber Soul 5. December 1965, We're Able to Work It Out, or Day Tripper, changed into the first of the Beatles' double asides. They ended every other frantically busy year with their very last British tour. There's been a deadline to complete their next album, because concerts were scheduled for the summer of 1966. All around the global, however, this did not have an effect on their approach to recording. At all the Revolver sessions, noticed the organization attain a new height of creativity in performance, songwriting and progressive studio techniques, in addition to the songwriting mastery displayed through John and Paul. The LP contained the biggest contribution up to now from George with 3 songs. His Caustic Taxman was given the reputation of the album's beginning music. Eleanor Rigby is now regarded as a fully realized masterpiece. However, when launched in August 1966 on Revolver, and as a single coupled with Yellow Submarine, its Solomon, Concern Matter, and stark arrangement had been considerably one of a kind. A year earlier than in August 1965, their look in the front of 55,600 fans at Shea Stadium in Big Apple had damaged the record for concert attendance and box office revenue, but the live overall performance had emerged as an unsatisfying charade, and dangerous too. Who cares how lucrative it turned into? That needed to stop the Beatles' final concert for a paying target audience. Passed off at Candlestick Park, San Francisco on August 29, 1966. On the stop of 1966, the Beatles began paintings on strawberry fields. All the time its long evolution confirmed the musical creativeness and technical experimentation heard on Revolver might be persisted to prevent the lengthy look ahead to New Cloth, Strawberry Fields for All Time, and Penny Lane have been launched in February 1967. Even though songs were usually credited to Lennon and McCartney, it quickly became clean that whoever sang the lead vocal changed into normally the principal composer. The double-sided single suggests how their unique stylistic techniques hooked up an ideal counterbalance, having set themselves an assignment of writing about their Liverpool childhoods. John's tune is dreamy and steeped in despair, while Paul's is uplifting and brimming with brilliantly found vignettes. Many had been taken aback, whilst the novel promotional movies for both songs had been broadcast. Even their mustaches and John's spectacles were considered to be evidence of ways weird. The Beatles had emerged as the square global concerned, absolutely free. One else listen time and again till they were given it. Released on June 1, 1967. Beyond the Spot, artistic and commercial achievement of CTT Peppers, Lonely Hearts membership band, vindicated the brand new method taken by means of the Beatles. It became the album that provided the soundtrack to the so-known as summer season of love. However, its enchantment is ageless. The Beatles accomplished their next single, All You Want Is Love, for the primary time at the TV program, our global broadcast, live to a target audience of 350 million around the world. Their region on the top of contemporary pop track become undeniable. Alas, quickly afterwards the Beatles were shaken with the aid of the sudden dying of their supervisor, Brian Epstein, in August 1967. they rallied to jot down and direct magical thriller, tour a movie proven on TV within the United Kingdom. At Christmas, a number of the hundreds of thousands who noticed it did now not find it irresistible. As Paul McCartney remembered, they were searching out the plum pudding special. That's what they had been watching for, and that they very an awful lot didn't get it. We were giving it to the young children. Why shouldn't they see something far out? The tune was as successful as ever, launched from the White Album, inside the UK and USA all through the 60s. But it's miles full of tracks that might have been huge hits, inclusive of Again in the United States, Oblad Oblada, and While My Guitar Gently Weeps, in January 1969, even as the White Album became nonetheless at no. 1. The Beatles assembled to write down and rehearse contemporary songs for a televised live performance. The plan changed, in order that in the end, their work became documented in a film, released over 12 months later. Its final scene confirmed. The Beatles, acting at the roof in their Apple workplace building in Savile Row, London, with maximum of the audience gathered in the road below. Yet again a number one, and Married from the sessions at Apple, turned into, swiftly observed by the Ballad of John and Yoko, a chronicle of John's marriage to Yoko Ono, and their honeymoon bed in 4-piece in Amsterdam. Recorded broadly speaking throughout the summer of 1969, the final album the Beatles made together became, named after the road in which Emmy's studios are placed, become a fitting tribute to the area in which the majority of their songs have been recorded. The Beatles' collaboration with manufacturer George Martin and the engineers at Abbey Road had challenged the manner that famous track changed into, created on many occasions. This team rewrote the guideline ebook and set a new widespread to which their contemporaries needed to aspire. In assessment to the January recordings at Apple, which became as live without overdubs, they go back to Abbey Road Studios with George Martin, LED to cautiously crafted tracks, with formidable musical preparations. The album's various highlights encompass come together, and to songs that show George Harrison's songwriting had hit a peak. Something and Here Comes the Solar. But the man or woman of Abbey Road is dominated, with the aid of the state of the art medley the group called The Long One. It brought the album and the Beatles' recording profession to an impressive end. What a farewell, measured in phrases of its substantial reputation and musical ingenuity. Abbey Street now demanding situations. The reputation of Sgt. Pepper, Lonely Hearts membership band, as the Beatles' finest achievement, whilst a sooner set of recordings from 1969 became, in the end, launched as Permit-Its. In May 1970, news had already damaged that the organization had split up. The album's title tune, and the lengthy and winding avenue, took the whole of Yankee Quantity once, by using the Beatles to 20 in 6 years, a feat unrivaled with the aid of another artist. Whilst the Beatles commenced making Data, no one predicted that they would be listened to. A long way into the destiny, pop song seemed as disposable. However, the undying appeal of the Beatles' catalogue ensured it became built to last, and relatively valued. In 1979, the prominent conductor and composer, Leonard Bernstein, wrote 3 bars of A Day Inside the Life. Still preserve me, rejuvenate me, inflame my senses and sensibilities. There is also every other measurement to the seductive power of the Beatles' music, full of the spirit of the era wherein it was born. It's far joyous and beneficial. All you need is love. Without love we may want to keep the world. The affection you're taking is identical to the affection you are making. Tom Petty felt it. We grew up with the Beatles and grew up trusting them. They may have chosen to do anything, and that they selected to do precise. That's a first-rate example for the relaxation of us.